Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Therefore, no current or prospective client should assume that the future performance of any specific investment strategy, including the investments and/or investment strategies recommended and/or purchased by advisor, or product made reference to directly or indirectly, will be profitable. Different types of investment involve varying degrees of risk, and there can be no assurance that any specific investment will either be suitable or profitable for a client's investment portfolio. No client or prospective client should assume that any information presented serves as the receipt of or substitute for personalized investment advice from the advisor or any other investment professional.
Welcome to the Bullington Capital Report, hosted by Bill Bullington. For the next hour, you'll receive information on current market conditions and trends that could affect your financial future. If you have a question, you can participate in today's program by calling 216-901-0945. That's 216-901-0WHK. You can also reach Bill by going to his website, bullingtoncapital.com. And now, here's Bill Bullington.
Well, welcome back, everybody. It's nice to be here. Sun shines out. Beautiful day out there. And just glad to be alive. I think today we're going to talk about a few things. I'm thinking we're going to talk about how to catch up late in the game in retirement, putting your retirement plans together, getting the being able to increase the amount that you're able to invest. How should you invest that? And just anything along those lines. So if you have something you'd like to ask, a question you have, you can always call us 216-901-0945. That number again is 216-901-0945. And if you'd like to set up a meeting, you can just go to my website. There's a contact us form page there. You can fill that out, and we will try to call you back as quickly as we can. And every time I start thinking about this, I'm thinking about the problems that developed with our with our providers for all this stuff. It started around COVID. COVID really hurt a lot of the service providers. I think they let a lot of people go. And then all of a sudden, they instead of needing less people, they needed more people. And they've been slowly but surely making their way back. So again, if you reach out and we don't get back to you within a week, so less than 5 days, a work week, then there's something happening on our technology side. So you may just want to give us a call. So it's 330-664-0700. The number again is 330-664-0700. And it's always all over my website as well. And if you hear something you're thinking about, I'm going to be retiring soon. How long can I, or what kind of income do I need? That's going to depend heavily on what you're making now and what you're spending now. And by the way, I've never seen two people who were identical. So I laugh all the time. All the material that you get or you see published in magazines or in books, they lay out a lot of scenarios, but an awful lot of people have asked me about questions, and I know that they've been reading, and the reason that they have questions is because they don't emphasize in the books that your retirement plans are specific to you. I've never seen somebody who had the exact same financial situation. Not once. Yeah, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I don't know. Maybe, but I doubt it. It's so everybody is just a little bit different. That's why there's still an industry. I would have thought that AI would have gotten rid of this whole industry by now, but you've got so many different changes, and it's constantly changing. And at some point in time, I think they might be able to do that. It's a lot easier for AI to manage a portfolio than it is for them to do a financial plan, because the portfolio has only got it has a limited number of inputs, and that is fixed, and it's not really going anywhere. So they can kind of do all the numbers and all the math for that. But when you talk about a retirement plan, you I've yet to see a software package that can, and they probably will at some point in time. But right now, none of them are able to read someone's feelings, and that's I know for a fact that there are people out there that are working on it, but that's going to be tricky. I mean, it's always going to be tricky. It's like life in general. Once you put people involved, or once people get involved, things start changing, and a lot of things are unexpected, and you kind of write down what's happened and try to learn from it, but it's slightly changing. So anyway, right now, to make all and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to try to make things easy, and I've always strived to try to do that in my career. It's try to make it as simple as possible, and you have a much better chance. The super complex plans I've seen out there inevitably try to get too deep into the details, if you know what I mean. And when something then happens, now they're lost, because they were counting on X and Y showed up, and now what? And it's not normally it's not a really big deal. Sometimes it is, but just being aware that things can happen that you didn't anticipate. There's a million different things that come to mind. In fact, my brain starts being overloaded with all the different topics that had come up over the years that I've seen. But anyway, long story short, you look at what the stock market's doing now, and it's actually pretty good. It's in a pretty good place. The valuations are not super high like they were 4 or 5 years ago. And 4 or 5 years ago, I was going, wow, these things shouldn't be selling at these prices for a few years now. And guess what? They went down and they went sideways. Now they're back up. And now you hear on television and all the media, stock market's at an all-time new high. Yeah, well, see, the last all-time new high was a little over 3 years ago. So that's they still don't talk about that a lot. And I feel like you should be teaching that kind of thing. And I I don't, maybe some of the colleges have started to teach it in their finance classes. But the amount of time that stocks can go down and actually show negative returns before they finally recover and then go higher. And by the way, I'm a big fan of the stock market, and I think my beliefs are that it will inevitably go higher at some point in time. And see that's not questioned at all, ever. It's just that how much time is it going to take? When does the next big correction come? How long does it last? And then how long does it take to recover? That's the thing that you should be asking yourself when you're getting closer to retirement. How much risk can I afford? How much of a decline can I afford to put up with and still be able to take out 4 or 5% and give the portfolio enough time to be able to recover? That is a big, big deal. And I think the number one mistake, this is one of the reasons that annuities are so popular. And it really upsets people who love the stock market and have invested in it their entire lives and done reasonably well or even very well. They don't want to do anything else. And I get it. That's been your experience. And I hope that experience carries through, for the 20 some odd years that the average retirement has a tendency to last. Because it would be, can you imagine? You've gotten all this way, you've gotten everything you thought you needed to, you retire, and then you get a big correction or another period like 2000 through 2010 on your hands, where the market basically went down over 50% twice, and at the end of that time period had a negative return. And you were counting on that to be able to provide income during your retirement. And I've had a bunch of people over the past, since I started looking at this really hard about probably 7 or 8 years ago. And I'd always known that there are certain personality types that just don't want to take any risk, and that annuities are probably a good thing to look at for most of them. If you don't want to take any risk, and especially if you don't want to take any risk and you still hate taxes, most people, especially the people that don't like risk, they don't like taxes either. So is the risk lower than the stock market? Probably. It's probably going to be lower than the stock market, but that doesn't mean that it's not good. And so that's one of the reasons I've been bringing this up. And I remember when I first started talking about it, because I had only talked about stocks for so long and managing stocks and how different funds work. And by the way, I was doing this radio show. When I first started, there were only 4 ETFs. 4. Now there are more ETFs. An ETF is an exchange-traded fund, for those of you that don't know. It's a fund that you can buy and sell during the day like a stock. Okay, the traditional funds, you had to wait until the end of the day, so you didn't know what the price was until the markets closed, and then they would update the prices. And back in those days, it used to take them like 45 minutes. So you really had no idea what it was going to be like when you executed your order. And some days, I can remember when markets were really wild. Some days you enter in a sale, and by the time the sale gets executed, the funds moved 4 or 5% in a single day. Actually, a lot of times in a single hour. And nobody's ever. I never hear anybody talk about that stuff. It's not mentioned in the Wall Street Journal. I'm looking at the Investmentpedia Retirement Guide, and they don't mention it in there. So having lived through that, it's something that you got to prepare for. I mean, and a lot of people to this day, they think I'm being a smart aleck when I say, hey, look, anything can happen, and if you live long enough, it probably will. And they think I'm just being facetious, and I'm like, no. That's experience talking. So you've got to be flexible, and at least as much as you can be. And I realize, again, everybody is a little bit different. That's one of the reasons that my field is still here now, and I don't have any doubt. I don't have any doubt that at some point in time, you're going to be able to sit in front of your computer screen, and it's going to show you, or you'll probably put on those 3D goggles that they have now, and it's going to show you your money, and it's going to show you what the graph looks like and what the dollars look like, and it's going to take you through a major correction to measure the dilation in the pupils of your eyes to basically see how upset you're getting. And then it'll make recommendations on the types of portfolios you should have. And I have no doubt in my mind that that's coming. I just don't think it's going to be here super soon. I don't think it probably maybe 10 years, that the way that AI is progressing. Right now, AI, you could answer a bunch of questions and it could do that for you now. Okay, I haven't seen anybody roll that out yet, although BlackRock's using AI a lot. And a lot of the ETF fund managers or fund companies, the sponsors of the funds, they're using it. They're using AI now to help them on. They're placing orders, rebalancing portfolios with that. And so it's here, and they're already using it. And you still need to read the prospectus, though, because the code for that stuff doesn't know what you want to do. Okay, it knows what what the programming is telling it to do, and what you want to do may not be what the objectives of that fund is, or funds are. And there's going to be a dichotomy there, and there'll be some minor problems. You can still avoid them if you're sitting down and you get a human involved. And again, eventually that's probably not going to be necessary, but that's not the way it is today. And I've only got about 15 seconds before the commercials start playing, so I'm going to tell you this is Bill Bullington. I'm right here on 1420 every Saturday from 11 to noon. If you'd like to call in and ask a question, the number's 216-901-0945.
There's a name that can silence every fear. There's a love that embraces the heartache, the pain, and the tears. Through my faith and my doubting, I know one thing for sure. His word is unfailing, His promise secure.
Cleveland's got guts.
And the Indians.
As well as the Browns and Cavaliers.
And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And a downright awesome downtown with a wallacadoodle-worthy waterfront.
But what's even in our water? Like a Lake Erie martini with more chlorine than a swimming pool?
Now, I'm a guy, and I've lived here all my life. Neither hard water nor chlorine bother me a bit.
Well, I had Wyatt Works put in a whole home water filtration system. It tastes better, and showering is so much better. My hair washes clean and stays healthier.
And I've got a regular old water heater.
And I've got tankless for endless hot water.
So what's our point?
Our point is, Wyatt Works is Cleveland's answer for water heaters.
Well, if you're a regular guy and just want same-day water heater service, Wyatt Works does that.
And if you want a water softener or a filtration system and want to go tankless, we do that too.
So get your water
wallacadoodled
with Wyatt Works.
Consider it done at WyattWorks.com. License number 30185.
Wish there was a place to find good, clean, family-safe entertainment? A place with no violence or profanity? Where you can let the kids roam free? That place is the all-new GodTube.com. Watch inspirational videos that'll challenge and motivate. Catch the latest music videos from Christian artists like Jeremy Camp, Hillsong, and Chris Tomlin. And share a laugh with clean comedians like Tim Hawkins, Anita Renfro, and more. All free 24/7 right in your own home at the simple touch of a button. Visit the new GodTube.com. That's GodTube.com.
No doubt about it, we're spending more time at home, which is the perfect time to make it more functional and beautiful. Hi, Ed Flash Ferentz here for Artistic Renovations, Northeast Ohio's premier and award-winning remodeler. Artistic did a fantastic job with our kitchen in 2016, and last year, they were back for the master bath. Oh, my word. Do yourself a favor and go to artisticreno.com. Believe me, you'll love their ideas and without question the finished product. For a virtual consultation, call 216-520-0838 or visit artisticreno.com.
You've heard the saying, all good things come to an end. Well, not always. Sometimes they just take a break. That's what's happening with Our Lady of the Wayside's car donation program. After 24 years and 96,000 rides donated. Pretty amazing. Here's the story. The car lot's owners sold the property, making it impossible for car donations to be accepted at this time. According to the Wayside CEO, Terry Davis, the next right steps will be determined and communicated soon, so stay tuned. In the meantime, Terry and the entire team at the Wayside thank you for your continued support of the 450 individuals with developmental disabilities in the Wayside's care. And please take note, you can still support them by making a donation at thewayside.org. Thinking about updating your home? Well, Joyce Factory Direct specializes in replacing old, outdated windows. Proudly made right here in Cleveland, Joyce Windows features their exclusive Smart Shield high-performance glass, which means you'll be getting the most energy-efficient windows for your home directly from the factory. Customers just love how much warmer their house is and how easy their new windows operate and clean. Right now, you can save 50% on all installations. Just call to schedule a free consultation with on-the-spot pricing, 440-243-5700, or visit JoyceFactoryDirect.com.
Can't escape disappointment. Can't avoid the delay.
Well, welcome back. This is Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning from 11 to noon, right here in 1420. If you'd like to set up a meeting to talk with me, either on the phone or in person, you can go to my website. It's bullingtoncapital.com. And I'll be glad to reach out, give you a call, and try to set something up. It's been pretty interesting this summer. It's been pretty busy. Most of the time, the summer is really slow, especially during this month. But we've had quite a few people calling this year, so it's kind of nice. And the fourth quarter is going to be the busiest. It's always the busiest. It is just it's a trip. And the next most busy quarter is the first quarter, is people trying to get their 1099s and get ready for their taxes. And a lot of people do that now. They're asking for stuff at the fourth quarter of this year, and I just have to tell you, a lot of things you can't do. We don't have control over that. The custodians, people that are like Fidelity's my primary custodian, they're the ones that have the ability to get you the information, and they are not required to go by your guidelines. Okay, that's they have to abide by federal rules. So, and everybody wants it. I remember one. I remember one New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve. Somebody called at 3:45. Or maybe it was the day before New Year's Eve, because New Year's Eve is a holiday. So anyway, the last business day of the year, the very last business day of the year, they called in at 3:45 and said, "I need a distribution done today." And I laughed, and I go, "Okay, well, we can try, okay, but you should have been here 3 weeks ago minimally. A month is normally better, because everybody on the planet has had a similar idea. Let's wait until the last I've never had anybody wait that long." And I will not, if you don't get it in before, the request is not in 2 weeks before the end of the year this year, no custodian out there will guarantee that you're going to get your money, which means that you stand to pay penalties and extra taxes. So you better get it in. And we start sending out letters in September. So we're telling everybody in September, hey, you need to start getting your required minimum distributions together. And you don't have to take the same amount out of all of them, although I think that's a good idea in most cases. But you can take it all out of one. So you can add all your IRAs up, do the calculation, and then just take it out of one particular IRA. And that could be a good idea, or maybe not. That's the other thing, is it is so funny. People think that when you are a financial advisor, that you're also a magician. How much should I take out? Well, how long are you going to live? And I don't know. Don't you know that? Really? I can guess, and that's basically what I'm going to do is guess. Yeah. By the way, what happens if you live one day past the date that you ran out of money? Yeah, so there's got to be some wiggle room in there, and most of the time it's not that bad. But we have had a lot of people, and I guess I don't know if I've just been talking about it longer on the radio. And this is the earliest time of year that I started talking about this. By the way, I've been creeping it up a little bit each year to give people a little bit more time. And I would think that, if you've got a couple of weeks, just take a look at it, do the calculation. Hey, send me a check. Here's the banking information, and a lot of times we already have it on file. But yeah, just cut that check and make sure that it gets there before, April 15th, because I don't want to have to pay any penalties or extra taxes. And so you can break just about anything down and make it as simple as you'd like it to. And that's another thing that's kind of funny. There are certain people in the world, and I know you all know them. I like to call them complicators. They are not happy unless there are at least 15 steps they have to take to get something done. Or they just keep asking more and more questions. Well, what about this? What does that have to do with this? What does your birth date have to do with the fact that you've got to take money out and it's got to be done before April 15th? Well, I was born. Now what you're telling me is that you want me to go back and recheck what, we did the first time. And no, I just want to, that's basically what you're saying. And so you got to have a lot of patience to sit where I sit. You hear the questions I get, and they are over and over and over again, and I get it. It's one of the reasons that advisors are here, is to answer those questions as many times as you ask them. Does it get fatiguing? Yeah, it gets fatiguing. At some point in time, this is the other one that's really good. And I know I got at least 10 clients that are going to be listening to this and thinking that I'm talking about them right now. But they think that you have every single one of their accounts and every single position in each of those accounts memorized. I'm like, yeah, well, we have a little over 500 accounts that we're managing, that we're actively managing. And if I could remember all 500 of them, and by the way, they're all over the map as far as size goes. The number of positions depends on, the number of shares depends on the day that they invested and what the dollar amount was. And you think I'm going to remember that 500 times 25 years? Yeah. And I wish I were Rain Man, kind of sometimes. But the nice thing is you can just look it up, and people make this way harder than it needs to be. And so if you've got most financial planning meetings should not be more than 15 minutes. And the reason that they go more than 15 minutes is because something has gotten into somebody's mind and it's bothering them and they can't figure out what it is or what the answer is. And they're rejecting the answer when they hear it. Because psychologically, for some reason, there's a mental block there. And I understand that too. I've been doing this for so long that I've seen it multiple times. This is not how I thought it was going to be. This is not how I thought it should be. Let's go through it again, and you need to take some time. It's like everything else in life. Oftentimes it may not be exactly what you want to hear, but it's the way it is. And you know what? If you're doing the right things, if you need to start planning, by the way, as soon as you get out of school and start working. That's the big deal. Most people don't do that. The vast majority of people they wait until they're in their mid-40s or even later to start really putting a lot of money away. Well, first of all, you've missed all that time. And even if it was just a small amount of money, that you were putting away, it could be something substantial. I know for a fact. I remember I found an IRA that I'd forgotten about. I'd started this thing. It was about 20 years before I found it. And I only put $500 in it. And I forgot about it. I moved. This is back when they had paper statements. They didn't get my new address. It went into I forgot, it was a specific area of the firm where they lost contact with people that had made the investments. And so I started doing business with that firm again, and then this account of mine popped up, and I'm like, wait a minute, I did not have an IRA in there for $3,700. Well, that's what the $500 had grown to. And I was like, oh, and I looked into it, and then I remembered opening that account. I was going to do something specific with it, and evidently I just forgot. And then I switched firms and I left it there. And kind of easy to do, especially today. Well, we didn't have nearly as many distractions as we do today. But that was a nice find. I thought it was hilarious. So you got to be. It'd be harder to do that today because everything now is online. It gets updated immediately. You buy something, and I've had people call me and say, I got to buy a bunch of treasuries, which, by the way, are really and they're paying a pretty decent amount right now. I want to buy some treasuries. Okay. And then they don't call me back. They don't tell me which treasuries. It only goes out 30 years. So one of the 30 years, whether they or not they want to pay a premium. If you pay a premium, sometimes it's worth it because the income from the bond is so much so that it pays back the premium and then some, and it will be higher than the ones that aren't paying premiums. So there's no easy answer there. And I literally I found a couple of bond funds that are managed. The expense ratios are very low. The companies that do it, both Vanguard and Fidelity, the two of them, and actually BlackRock's got some really good ones now too. But these guys are going in, and they're actually outperforming their indexes. Knock on wood, at least they have the actively managed ones anyway. And the others are just going to give you whatever the index does, which is pretty good. So if you wanted a 2-year treasury, but you didn't want to have to keep calling your broker or your advisor and every 2 years, okay, what are we going to do, and go through that whole mess for next to nothing, by the way. You can always put your money in one of these funds, and they'll do it for you. And what's really nice about that is if it's a taxable account, all the activity that goes on inside that fund is tax deferred until you sell the fund. And then it's going to get treated with long-term capital gains tax rates instead of your normal tax rate. So if more often than not, that long-term capital gain tax rate is going to be lower in probably 98% of the cases. Knowing what you want to do is key. If you're looking at, okay, I'm going to retire, I'm 55 years old, so I'm going to work until I'm 67, so that's 12 years. I'm going to put off taking Social Security until I'm 67. Okay, we can look that up, no problem. Get an estimate to see what that's going to be. We can take a look at how much you're saving now, do some projections, and I want to be as conservative on those as I can. And over the years, I know for a fact I've walked right past a lot of business because I was doing conservative estimates. I'd rather underestimate and over-provide. Does that make sense? I'd rather underestimate and be left with too much rather than say, well, I think the stock market's going to average 10% a year, for the next 20 years. And then it comes back in at 8, because that is well, I guess you could just keep working. That would be one of the options. Or you have to cut way back on your lifestyle. And it's hard. It's really hard to make those decisions. That's where, most advisors, as far as I'm concerned, this is where we earn our keep. Because we can look at these situations. We can make you aware of this stuff that's coming up. We can capitalize on whatever current trends there are. There's the funds that I'm using, they are all adjusting based on size of the company, the rate of change in the share price. A lot of people don't even understand that are in my industry. Don't understand how that works. It's capitalization, so it's size and speed is put together and measured by capitalization. I'll give you an example. Say company's at $10 a share, and they got $10 billion or a billion shares outstanding. So company's worth, the stock of the company is worth $10 billion. Okay. It goes up $2. Okay, so it goes from 10 to 12. Well, that means the value of the company is going to go from $1 billion to $1.2 billion. 20%. And I've got, actually, I'm going to have to take a real quick commercial break here, so I'm going to let you know this is Bill Bullington, right here every Saturday morning from 11 to noon. If you'd like to call us 216-901-0945. I'm going to take this real quick commercial break, and we'll come back for the last segment of the show today.
I've been running in circles, jumping the hurdles, getting caught in that rush of doing so much. I'm feeling kind of worn out. All this checking the boxes, trying to be flawless, has me spinning my head, catching my breath, too afraid to slow it down.
All right, hey friends, Bob France here for the good folks at the Buff, Harry Buffalo, Great Northern Boulevard in North Olmsted. When's the last time you stopped in Harry Buffalo? If it's been a little while, you don't know what you have been missing. They have added so many phenomenal things, including the new lunch special. Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2, you get your choice. 2 soups, salads, and sandwiches. You pick all just $10. Now, that's the lunch special. They also have the happy hour specials, and that's my favorite. Weekdays from 4 to 7, a new food special every day of the week. Wing day, burger day, pizza day, all kinds of great options for you. You can check them out online at harrybuffalo.com. As a matter of fact, while you're there, join the herd, get a free appetizer on your next visit. Take a look at the menu, whet your appetite just a little bit, and head on out. By the way, if you're looking for something after work, great drink specials and happy hour too. $3 for craft pints, domestic talls, well drinks, and house wines. $3 domestic pints all day. So whether it's lunchtime or happy hour time or dinner time, doesn't matter. It's a great time when it's Harry Buffalo time on Great Northern Boulevard in North Olmsted.
Do you ever find yourself saying, I need a vacation? Vacation Fixation can help. At Vacation Fixation, we specialize in all-inclusive trips and cruises to Mexico, the Caribbean, and Disney vacations. Why choose us? Our clients book through Vacation Fixation because they are frustrated with online trip brokers and timeshare scams. Whether it's a weekend getaway, a family trip, spring break, or honeymoon, Vacation Fixation will personalize a trip just for you. Want to know the hottest destinations in Cancun, Punta Cana, Jamaica, or Puerto Vallarta? Interested in room upgrades, beach reviews, or details about resort restaurants? How about finding a trip with a direct flight? At Vacation Fixation, we take all of your specific travel requests and shop our suppliers to find the best deal. What's the cost? Our suppliers pay us so you don't have to. Call 330-573-8147 for more details. Or you can visit our website at vacationfixation.com or check out the deal of the day on Facebook. Vacation Fixation.
Is it finally time to update your bathroom? Bath Planet, a division of Joyce Factory Direct, specializes in replacing and converting old showers and tubs into new, beautiful bathrooms in as little as one day. We have transformed thousands of bathrooms just like yours into a spa-like oasis that has homeowners excited to use their new bathtub or shower. Right now, all bath installations are 50% off. So call to schedule a free consultation with on-the-spot pricing. 440-243-5700 or visit JoyceFactoryDirect.com.
Well, welcome back. This is Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning from 11 to noon. If you'd like to call in today, we've got a few minutes left here, 216-901-0945. We're just talking a little bit about different options for retirement, how much, actually more than that, how much money you would need to be able to retire. And everybody's a little bit different again. You know, I've never met two that were the same. And incidentally, what's really funny is a lot of the advice that you get, save 20% of your income or 15% of your income. That's the most popular thing now, but that depends on your age. You know, if you get to 1 year away from retirement before you start putting that money away, that's going to be pretty rough. So my suggestion is shoot for 15% no matter what age you are, because for the vast majority of the population, that's a little difficult for the vast majority of them to do. Now, I know the ones that are saving 20 or 30 or 40 or 50% of their income are going, no, that's not hard. And, yeah, but let me tell you something. You guys are the albatrosses. You're not. It's not very common. And quite frankly, if you were able to put away half of your income and that you didn't need, you could just leave it in a money market account, and you wouldn't really have to take a lot of risk with it. But if you're getting closer, and let's say you're a little uneasy about the stock market, it's one of the reasons that I started a few years ago. I went back and I had let my insurance license expire, so I went back and reinstated it, took all the training and took the tests, because there's a big demand there, and a lot of people need it. I mean, it's when you can get a guaranteed income for the rest of your life, no matter what happens in the stock market, and it's very competitive. Now, it depends on how old you are. The older you are, by the way, that's one area where being older is a big advantage, because your life expectancy is not quite as long, so the insurance companies are willing to give you a much higher payout than they're willing to give somebody who's in their 50s. Okay, so that's a big deal. The to be able to keep up with that with a bond or a stock or even a stock market, you're going to be hard pressed. That's going to be a very difficult task to keep up with the return, with the guaranteed returns that you get as you get older. If you're above the age of 70, and I would not be looking closely at CDs or money market accounts or savings accounts to try to supplement your income. If you took part of it and put even a portion of it into an annuity and just turned on the income stream, that would reduce the amount that you would have to take out of your other savings, okay, because it's paying more than your other savings is. So you're making up for it. Okay? So that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And again, everybody is different. You've got to go based on your needs. It's needs-based planning. That's the mode that I've always used is what are your needs? What do you feel like you need? By the way, some people have a tendency to confuse wants with needs, and that's another job of an advisor is to sit up and say, well, here's how much you make, and here's how much you've been spending. And those things you need to know that, by the way, before you sit down to talk with an advisor, because otherwise you're going to get charged a fortune with a lot of, if they're paying by the hour instead of fee-based, then and you're going to pay an awful lot of money to go through those questionnaires, which you can do yourself. And so basically just write down what your living expenses are. And if you don't know, just get a pad, a piece of paper, look at your bills, and write them down. Get an estimate there. I would probably add 20% to that estimate once you get it. 20% of the estimate, not 20% of your income. So anyway, and you'll have a pretty decent idea of how much you're going to need to be able to maintain your lifestyle. Now, you've got the money that you've got saved. If you're already there, you can subtract that from the number I'm about to give you. But the number I'm about to give you is how much would you need to be able to spend 4% of that. That's called the 4% rule. It's just an accepted number in the financial planning industry. I've seen people that have a lot less than that. I've seen people that needed more than that. If you do need more than that, you're probably going to have to rely more heavily on an insured product because right now interest rates are not high enough to be able to pay a whole lot more than 4%. And you might get 5, but after taxes, it's going to come down to 4. So that's why the 4% rule for a while there, when interest rates were nearly zero, you're like, oh, brother. So you didn't have really a choice. You had to take on a little bit more risk than you thought you might have to take on if you wanted to reach, if you wanted to have an average annual return that was above in the high single digits, let me put it that way, somewhere between 7 and 9%, you're going to have to take on a whole lot more risk about 10 years ago than you would today. Knock on wood, by the way, because every time I say something, we know what the long-term averages of everything are. The problem is those are long-term averages. So whenever I spit out a number like that, you have to take it with a grain of salt. And when you come in and talk about, your plan, we're going to go through this. You need to know this to walk into the planning arena, not realizing that how much risk you're taking, not realizing how much things really have a tendency to fluctuate. That's where people get really mad at people like me that do this for a living, because somebody's not exposing them or showing them all the risk that they're taking. And then when it shows up, it'll show up. You just have to live long enough. If you live long enough, you're going to see what I'm talking about. You're going to see a correction that's 40 or 50%, and everything's going to look like it's, going down and never coming back up again. And it might take it quite a while to recover that. So, and when you get to retirement age, that is not the time that you want to start looking at how you're going to cut back on things. The retirement should be something where you look forward to it. And I'm going to do this when I retire. I'm going to take this trip. Whatever it is that you like to do, which is really wild for me because I'm not a big traveling fan. I've done all the traveling that I really want to do. And I think I might go to Paris though, because I really labored in French class back in the day when I was in undergrad. It was mandatory. You had to take 2 years worth of a language, a foreign language, in the School of College of Arts and Sciences to be able to get a degree there. So I had to take 2 years. I just struggled with that. And actually, the fourth class, which was the hardest, okay, you come in the first day, open the book to the first chapter, and the instructor comes in and goes, "Fermez les livres." That means close your books. We weren't allowed to use the books. We had nothing. You had to know the material so well by the time you were there that you could speak it and write it without looking at the book, without relying on it. That was rough. And I'm pretty sure the only reason I even passed that class, when you're playing football and you're spending 50 to 60 hours a week, even in the off season, that doesn't give you a whole ton of time to study. And if I had it to do over again, I'd have gone into the military, saved the money, and went on a GI Bill to college. That's basically, and it would have taken me about the same amount of time to get the degree that I wanted. But anyway, this guy, closed the book, and it was really, really, really difficult. It reminds me of financial planning, actually. It can be very difficult. You come in and you start looking at all the definitions of all these terms and all the concepts that you need. It can be made relatively simple, which I don't care. You won't convince me that you'll make French relatively simple. But this can be made relatively simple. But there is a language. There's a language you probably need to become familiar with. Not too much. Not too much from a consumer side, unless you really, really want to know it. Like if you were to say, "Hey, Bill, what's been the best performing investment?" And I'm going to ask you, okay, is it managed money or are you just tossing quarters? Because a lot of people think that because they bought a stock that did exceptionally well that they're geniuses. Yeah, right up until that stock has a big correction that takes 10 or 15 years to recover from, and suddenly you're not a genius anymore. I've seen that so many times. But you need to figure out what's going on behind them, and what are their average fluctuations, because you're going to have to put up with it. And that's why the annuities are so important. That's why fixed income, government bonds, money market accounts, those all play a very important role in getting you to where you want to be in retirement. Because if you're taking on too much risk, I promise you, the correction's going to come sooner or later, and then you're going to wonder what to do. You're going to be beside yourself. I get the calls. Every time the market's down more than 20%, my phone's lighting up. And a lot of them are new people that nobody told them that could happen. And I remember going back to my managers. I always invested a ton of money into my business, and I was buying this stuff that everybody in my firm that was working there just thought I was nuts. Why are you buying it? Nobody had a computer, and I bought a personal computer. And it was called a desktop. They didn't have the names they have for them today. And laptops, you should have seen how big and bulky those things were. They weren't called laptops. Those were portable computers. But anyway, I got this computer, and I wanted to know. I bought the software, which cost almost as much as the computer did. And I started doing this mainly for my clients, but I also had that curiosity for myself. And now everybody's got access to a bunch of stuff that's really easy, but they still don't talk a lot about it. They don't talk about the actual risk that's involved. I remember reading, and this wasn't on the internet, it was in a book. and I read where the average annual range for the average stock on the New York Stock Exchange, which was the premier exchange at the time, still is, and the average range for the average stock was 50%. 50% a year. And I went, what? Is that really true? And by the way, I corroborated that. I didn't just take it. I just didn't take the author's word for it. And I found these quotes from this guy by the name of Peter Lynch. If you don't know him, it's because you're not old enough. That's okay. He's just the only guy in the world that ran a public mutual fund and beat Warren Buffett's track record at the same time that he was running it. He was the one. The one. Nobody's ever done that with a publicly available mutual fund. And they were very close. And then Warren Buffett. And both those guys said, hey, if you can't stand, now they're longer term investors, okay? Especially Warren Buffett. He said, if you can't stand to see the value of your stocks drop by 50% or more, don't buy stocks. And I'm going, what? They didn't go over that in the training program. I'm thinking, how could anybody buy? Well, and the vast majority of the people there weren't saying anything about it. But you know what? I just got the 60 seconds. I got a few seconds here left. I'm going to have to finish this up next week. If you'd like to talk to me about your investments, you can call me 330-664-0700 or go to bullingtoncapital.com online. I appreciate you listening this weekend. Have a good rest of the weekend, and good luck. Good investing.
You just caught another edition of the Bullington Capital Report, broadcasting every Saturday at 11 a.m. on AM 1420, The Answer. If you have a question and you'd like to speak to Bill personally, you can call him at 330-664-0700. That's 330-664-0700. Or online at bullingtoncapital.com. That's bullingtoncapital.com.
The preceding program has been paid for by Bullington Capital Management, LLC.